pretty much able to talk just about anything. So
And there's
That's
Jay
good.
with the stealth button again.
What? I was right on time. It flipped over at 8:00, and I was like, bam! I had it down.
All right, you are running it, dude. Here we go. Do the intro.
What? Well, hello everyone. Hello, Joe and Anita. Joe, I think we're gonna have to have words tonight. Katie said that you've been harassing her. I don't know what's up with that, but I've seen the videos. I wouldn't mess with her, especially when she's got sharp objects, sharp instruments. Well, welcome back to Spilling Ink. It's another Saturday night, and I just got back recently from urgent care, which is kind of like a miniature emergency room. If you don't know what urgent care is, because my one of my kids had some friends over tonight, and they went out for a bike ride, and one of them got hurt on the bike ride, and chewed up their leg pretty good. So had to go up to urgent care and meet the dad up at urgent care, which is never what you want to do, but but he's fine, and they've already been treated, and they're back here continuing the party. So so not too bad. We lucked out with that one, and so I just figure everything else is going to be smooth as can be tonight too. And Katie, it's because I know you're really interested in this type of show. Oh man, Joe's talking more smack.
I don't know what's got it in him, but
he's feeling
he's
a
asking
coach
for
or
it.
something. I guess got something going on there. But yes, Katie, Heather and I have been watching a lot of treasure hunting type shows, and it's not just like looking for a pirate treasure. It's like digging for gold, or most recently we started one that's digging for opals in Australia, which is fascinating. They're so cool. And then we just started today the Dino Hunters show on Discovery Plus, where these guys are actually out there prospecting for dinosaur bones, and they sell them. I'm like,
Wow.
this needs to be my life. How is this not what I do? It's amazing. They're like pulling up Triceratops horns and stuff. It's pretty incredible. So yeah, so that's kind of the big news in my life. What about yours? I mean, do you guys have anything interesting going on?
Well,
Wait, this is Spilling Ink, the show. Did we already say that?
No, we didn't.
Oh,
You're supposed to be running it.
we just got to zoom right into it.
Well, I've got dinosaur bones on the mind, okay?
That's okay. I've got trying to stay alive on the mind. I took my teenager out for her first freeway lesson today, and
That's exciting.
that was fun.
Adventure.
That was fun.
Yeah.
When you get out of the car and you're kissing the ground going, thank you, we made it.
If you ever want some excitement in your life, there you go.
Oh man.
Take somebody to the freeway that's never drove in the freeway before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that
in
is
a van too.
scary.
We're not talking about a regular car. We're talking about a mom van.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, when I was 16, I couldn't wait to drive. So I was on the road as soon as I possibly could. But 2 of my 4 kids have no interest in being on the road. And I think part of it's anxiety, and the other half is just like, I just don't care about it, which is baffling to me. But at the same time, I guess it's less worry for me, because I worry about myself on the road. I don't want to have to worry about them out there traveling by themselves. And we have snow here. You guys don't have snow. It's not like you're going to have a heat blizzard or something that's going to cause your car to go off the road.
At least not yet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like LA was fun when they do what?
I said at the first drop of rain, our roads become slicker than shit.
Yeah, well, that's
I remember living in LA and having that problem. Yeah. People still be driving right behind me. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's raining, dude.
No joke.
Here in Texas, it's like a whole completely different story, just because of we did have snow. Yeah, because power was shutting off everywhere, and I'm like trying to drive in my car. My car just so. Huh?
Did Texas get snow?
Yeah. Unfortunately, no, I'm not a snow person.
That's all we saw on the news for a week, even up here, and we were just all watching in fascination as Texas shut down. We're like, damn, we've got like 4 times this much snow outside, but you guys don't have the infrastructure to deal with that kind of thing down there.
No, they don't.
Yeah, no, they didn't prepare the infrastructure for it. Well, we're more in tune with the heat than anything else down here. We never expect that kind of weather to hit. I think the only thing I know about it was like the lowest temperature I've seen that it went down through history, going through the history records, was -11.
Oh, wow. That is
But that
really
was
cold.
what even like around the 1950s or older, somewhere around there. So they've been hit a few times, but not in modern times. So with the new infrastructure, with the electricity and everything, they were like, "Whoa, what's going on over here?" We need to just shut everything down. And I guess they said there were like few seconds to 5 minutes from like it like completely destroying the grid and saying, "Oh, we're gonna be down for like 3 months." I was like, "Oh my gosh." It's like, don't do that. I need my electricity. I need my internet. Moving back to LA.
Oh, well, Heather and I have been talking about, because we've actually been talking about maybe moving out west in a couple of years if we get our finances straight, because we really want to go out there. And she actually found a hobby farm in New Mexico that's on 20 acres of land. But get this, it's set up to live completely off the grid.
Uh-oh.
It's like solar panels and rainwater collection. And I was like, they don't get rain. For one thing, we need water for all the emus that I want to have. And I got to have my high-speed internet. That's like my thing. I have to have.
Oh yeah, that's a must. Okay, that has to be a must right there. It's like that's what I was worried about. I was like, oh no, it's gonna turn off. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna go crazy. Okay, what's there to do? I need my internet. I'm not attached to the rest of the world.
Well, before
weirdly
we get
enough,
too
coming
much,
from an introvert.
before we get too much further, we really should pay homage to our sponsor tonight, the great and wonderful and all powerful WJR Parks. Thank you so much for sponsoring the show, WJR. You really are the best. It's wonderful working with you. Katie and I both appreciate you. Yeah.
I hope
problem.
Joe is just screaming on the other side there. I can just see him right now. All that shit talking. See what happens?
Well, you better do a proper sponsor thingamajigger there, Katie, before Joe loses it.
All right. Well, even though he's sitting in the comment section just talking,
I'm wondering what we're talking about.
We do need to send a big thank you out to Joe, because he does run Go Indie Now, and Go Indie Now supports indie authors and artists of all types. So here we go. Message from Joe.
Hello, everybody. I am Joe Compton, and welcome to our channel, Go Indie Now. This is the place that celebrates indie artists and indie art, and we do so by producing several shows that either air on daily, weekly, monthly, or seasonal scheduling. And within those shows, we aim to educate and entertain you. If you're an indie artist who's trying to figure out how to do this, this is the place you need to be. If you're an indie artist who's looking to promote and doesn't have any avenues and is tired of the grind, this is the place to be. Because remember, it's always time to go indie now.
It's kind of funny. As soon as that starts playing, now you all can't see it in the audience, but we can see it, and our little thumbnails, our little icons down below. As soon as something else pops up on the screen, like Joe talking, all you see is Katie and I puffing on the vapes with big clouds of vape smoke. And I do that on the other show too. Even though it's only audio, you can hear the vapes going. So as soon as I ask a question and they start to answer, I quick mash the mute button. I'm like, oh goodness. Well, we have a wonderful guest for you tonight, the lovely and talented Miss Katie Slidis. Katie, how are you? Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It is wonderful to be invited. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, and it's not often that we get a supermodel on the show to talk to us, so we appreciate it. It's really good to meet you. All
right. Well, let's get on with this. Who else do we have here?
Well, we have Ron Jeremy's best friend, WJR Parks.
I still love that picture. That is the best.
It is sexy.
Glamour shots picture right there. I love
it. I'm working on getting back to that look. So hopefully in another couple months with this I'm about to say the coronavirus diet. Carnivore diet. Okay.
You might lose some weight on the coronavirus diet too.
No, you gain weight. You gain weight.
Well, I actually lost 20 pounds on it, actually.
going
To tell the truth.
Well, the carnivore diet, is that kind of like the paleo diet where it's like meats and nuts and things like that?
Well, so far it's all meats, high-fat meats. That's all I've been eating, trying to stay away anything from sugar. So anything that has to do with, I guess, carbs, sugar, sweet tea, Cokes, anything like that. That's what I try to.
I know my favorite things, but you can eat cheese. I mean, that's not a carb,
Yeah.
right? That's awesome.
Yeah, and I forgot what my nephew had told me about a type of butter. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think Katie abandoned us. Joe got really mad at her, and so she jumped ship.
She's
Rebekah popped up here. Rebekah Jonesy says, "Hello, loves. I'm chilling with Joshua and Diana. Joshua and Diana, if you can hear me, I just wanted to say hi. It's been a long time since I've talked to either one of you, and I kind of miss you guys. I really do. So, Rebekah, if they can't hear me, if you could pass along the message, maybe give them a hug for me, that'd be great."
The return.
The return. Well, WJR, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've been on the show before, but maybe some people don't know who you are just yet.
Yeah, maybe. William Ramos, WJR Parks. I am an author of these lovely series right here in Raven Universe. That's my main character right there. I guess it falls under dark fantasy, paranormal, and urban. That's what I mainly concentrate on. Vampires and historical fiction, I guess it would also fall under there, since it takes place in the revolutionary times, the Revolution War in 1776. Other than that, I do photography. You can see right behind me, and web designer. I guess that's about it. That's everything I can think of about myself. But yeah, photography, writer.
I'm gonna make
everybody disappear.
I'm gonna make you big so I can see it.
I was like,
I can't see it very well, but it's the three
right
prints.
There. There's a couple of move out of the way. I don't know. I get confused with these.
Okay. Beautiful women artfully posed with cool shadows and light.
Yep, and that's actually the two posters are part of this novel right here.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And then I don't know if you can see that computer screen right there. I drew and designed that with Photoshop and 3D program right there for another cover that I eventually plan to have out.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, I have to say, you're a pretty impressive person.
Did we already talk about the new podcast?
Or the beard?
Oh, yeah.
The beard is glorious. Oh my goodness. It is just what
if anyone knows down to here.
Well, and the way that it's kind of digitized, from on the magic of the internet, it almost like it sparkles a little bit. It's amazing. I love it.
It's glowing there. It's all the gray.
So tell us about your new
Amazingly
podcast.
enough, 5 years ago it was completely black. Now it's gray. That's what happens when I moved to Texas, I guess.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Podcast. Yeah, me and Janelle wasn't able to make it tonight. She just recently sold her house, but she's my co-author that actually is taking control of Leonette, this particular character right here. And she's written a short story, that novella right there, and we're currently working on a story with the Lobo brothers, these twin paranormal detectives. She sold her house. She has to go look at other houses because I think she says she has to be out within a month. So that's her main concern right now. She was supposed to be on tonight, but her agent has a few more houses to look at.
Well, that's certainly an important thing to do.
That's where we're at.
I think so. And right now the housing market
But
is crazy.
yeah, our podcast mainly do what now?
Said right now the housing market is crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how it is over there in Fresno right now either. So yeah, I guess it's a good thing that she at least has some houses to look at. So, but yeah, that's where our podcast is mainly called Writing Raven Universe. We were trying to figure out a name. Something I might have to figure out in the future, because for the ISBNs I use for my books, I have it as Ravenverse Publishing. But then lately I saw that another person took up the name with Ravenverse Publishing. So I'm trying to figure out who had the website off first. And I think I did, but yet I'm hoping nothing comes about with that. I don't know, maybe I might have to change it, but I changed the name on YouTube either way. It used to be on the safe side to Writing Raven Universe, because on Tuesdays and Thursdays, what were our plans to do the podcast. Tuesdays mainly focusing on our world, but yet still keep giving tips out to brand new writers. Writers basically just barely joining, trying to break into the writing industry, who have never had any kind of experience with it. Because I know I have a lot of people who come up to me and ask me, how do I go about publishing? How do I go about writing a story? What do I need to do to make my characters pop? And I'm like, holy cow, okay, well, I can go through an entire series of lectures, I guess, to tell you. But so we decided, let's try to make a podcast, and hopefully we're kind of in the process of growing still. I think we got finally up to 6 subscribers now. So yeah, so we're still growing. Yeah, we're getting up there slowly but surely. So
on the podcast, you mostly you talk about your series, and then also advice for new writers. Is that what? Do I understand that right?
On Tuesdays we do. On Tuesdays we try to incorporate our characters. I think like Janelle had read a excerpt from or a couple of excerpts from the Leonette novella that we have, just like describing as far as slow-paced scene and a fast-paced scene. If you want a fast-paced scene and you have more action into it compared to where you're describing details of a particular area, like the trees were green, flowing and dancing with the movement of the wind, it's slow. And then you have, now she was shooting this monster and she had to race up to it and kick it in the face. And so she read a couple of examples like that. So that's how we kind of incorporate our ideas, because we have 10 years of failures and learning. So we try to at least give them a little bit of our experience and what we learned throughout our writing journey. And then on Thursdays we have it where we have right now it's been Thursdays and Sundays. We never actually expected to be Sunday to have a show there, but we kind of playing around with it. But on Thursdays and Sundays we invite authors to come by and give us a little bit of their ideas on their story, their world, and then share their tips on what they would give to new writers just barely trying to break in. Because we know there's a lot of writers out there who've probably already been there for about a year to 2 years or whatnot. And you can kind of learn quite a bit within those few years. But I know I have a lot of people, like I said, that come up to me. They've written a book, they don't know what to do with it. So hopefully we can at least get it. We're playing around with it, but more of a, I guess, foundation and structure on how we can actually present our ideas a little bit better. As far as right now, we're just kind of playing around with it, testing the waters, and see how we do.
That's cool.
What kind of advice have you heard so far in doing this podcast? And has there been anything that surprised you?
Who was it? The first one, Bobby Nash was one of the first interviewees that we had. A lot of it was pretty much on how to do, what do you call it? I guess from what he has a lot of titles, and I guess he actually markets for the people that he worked with. But he concentrated too on going to actual shows, I guess, in a sense, going to shows and talking to people, and actually, I guess, answering their questions and being right there, being present. And I know you can't do it. He said you couldn't do it of course, in 2020. So that was one of the main things that kind of shut down. But I have no experience at all whatsoever in doing those kind of shows. So he gave me some pretty good ideas and perspectives, which I want to try to do now. I want to really try to get into the shows and maybe get my books out there. Maybe that's a different avenue of doing things compared to, I know a lot of writers are usually more introverts, so they don't get out. I'm an extreme introvert, so it takes me a while to get used to certain things in order to present my works out there. So usually I just want to hide in the room and write a book and say, hey, there you go. Enjoy it. Be good.
Yeah.
And I think another one is, I think he's the one that mentioned about newsletters and I guess being a little bit more personal with them in a sense. It's been a while since we did that show, so I'm trying to recollect what exactly he had said. But like newsletters, I know I'm trying to do right now, and hopefully going into actually doing these expos or shows where I can actually present the works in front of actual people and be with them. So that's one thing that I had learned from them.
Well, and I think that's
who's the other?
really...
Well, of course, Katie. We had Katie there. So we had Katie for one of our guests. She gave Janelle really loved her tips, and she wants to buy her book for sure. She was even telling me today. She was like, and I wish I could make it. I'll tell her I apologize. I really like that girl. She's really good. She had really good tips, and so.
And we'll get her back. Don't worry. We'll get her on.
Yeah.
Well,
I know we talked about.
I didn't know that Katie wrote books too, besides the modeling. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. No, right? She has many surprises. Especially that particular book. Write the Damn Book. Is that what it's called?
That's it.
Well, I think that
so that's
what you were talking about actually getting out in front of people. I think that is really useful advice, and not all of us can do it. I'm an extreme introvert, except for when I'm on, and when I'm on stage, I'm on. When I'm on this, I'm on. But I think that for me, at least, because I've been to a few writing workshops in person, and I always, they're not as easy as sitting at home behind your computer and just watching something, but I feel like there's a lot more of a connection with the speaker, with the author, and I'm much more likely to say, William was up there giving a lecture, and I listened through the lecture, and then you're signing books afterwards. I'm much more likely to go up and say, hey, I want a paperback or a hardback of this than if I'm just sitting back watching spilling ink. It might just be something I'm doing in the evening, and I won't think twice about it. But yeah, so that's really good advice. I think being able to get out there and actually connect with people is really important.
And that's what I found it to be one. Like, as when I first started writing and people started explaining to me that I was going to have to connect with people, I was confused. I was like, why would people want to connect with me? I'm writing about I wanted to connect with the character and the book. I want to hide in a room and write these stories. And because a lot of my friends know me when I was young. I was an extreme shy person, right? I was like, it was hard for me to even speak and create friendships. And in my 20s, I started forcing myself to break myself out of that, because weirdly enough, it's a contradiction. I wanted to become an actor, which is going against my whole entire philosophy of, okay, I need to hide in a room. And so I started forcing myself to run businesses and have to sit down with like CEOs or anything like that, because they can get pretty scary when you're trying to make deals. So that helped me to kind of break away from that shell. So every single aspect in my life, I forced myself to break the, I guess, shell of shyness and introvert. And the other thing too is that.
I said you're forcing yourself to go against your nature to accomplish these
exactly. And so with writing, I eventually got to the point where, okay, well, if it's going to have to be where I talk and present myself, then so be it. because I was trying to find what the psychology behind that was. Why do readers like connecting with the author? And me and Janelle were kind of talking about that and trying to figure out what the cause of that is. And I think they just want to, I don't know, maybe they associate you with parts of the character. That world kind of lives inside of your mind, so they want to be a little bit closer because they love certain characters.
Yeah.
They can't really get close to those characters, so they have to try to associate with you in order to figure out what those characters, in a sense of, I guess, pretending to be you. I guess those characters are they're thinking you know about those characters' personalities and whatnot, and that's their way to connect.
Well, I agree with it completely. I think many of us do it. I know I do. I finished reading the Nevernight Chronicles by Jay Kristoff, who kind of reminds me of Joshua, because he's this giant of a man. But I finished reading it, and I was so connected with that series, with those characters in those books, that immediately afterwards I went and found the author's website, and I was trying to look up if there's a way that I could arrange an interview or get him set up on here, or where he does appearances, because it was, I feel like I'm connected with the author because I connected so much with his work. And that may not make sense, or it may make a little bit of sense. I'm not really sure, but I think that when you really love a book, you feel a little bit of connection to the person that birthed it.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to get to know them a little bit better. Like I said, in essence, you kind of connect with the characters through the actual author because he's the creator. So he should know what those characters and personalities are in a way. And sometimes maybe they also want to try to get some secrets in what's going to happen in the future as well. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, to try to connect, to get a little bit closer to those characters, since they really can't do it in real life. Perhaps they can do it through you. And
right.
So you enjoyed those books. You know what? I tried to read the first chapter, and it was one of the most different purple prose, in my opinion, that I read. And I guess I fall within the extremes where either you like it or don't like it. And so I couldn't get into it.
The first chapter was really weird. And I think he wrote it that way on purpose, just to be weird. And I don't feel like it needed to be in there. It kind of felt like a prologue where it could have just been cut out. But after that, it was just incredible. The whole freaking series. And I was super, super bummed when I finished it. Yeah.
Maybe I might have to give it another try again.
I would say give it another shot, man, because it is honestly, it's probably one of the best fantasy series I've ever read. It was so damn good. But lots.
Yeah, I know. I heard a lot of praise about it, and I was like, "What are these people talking about?" The first chapter.
Yep, the first chapter was weird. I don't blame you there, but lots of blood and lots of sex. So as long as you're not squeamish about those things, you'll be okay.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that was another thing. Like me and Katie and Janelle were talking about in the show, trying to figure out where books fall in far as like genres, because I think for me that's been one of my biggest problems, in a sense, because of course it goes with the psychology and what specific book cover falls within your genre as well, because I designed all of these right here, but the way I designed these I think are okay. The way I designed this one is a little bit confusing to probably readers, because mine is not a young adult and it is dark fantasy and urban fantasy mixed with that historical, but I do have a lot of sex scenes and gruesome action in there, and so it's not young adult. But a lot of, even some of my buddies that were from Barnes and Nobles were suggesting, well, you should probably take away all the sex scenes, all the gruesomeness, and make it into a young adult. You'll probably sell it. And I'm like, well, then it goes away from what I was thinking. That's what the character for Raven is. I had this particular idea of the character, and if I do that away, it doesn't, I don't know, fall true to what the story is for me. and I don't want to be confined for Raven, at least, to that particular genre. I want it to be, write freely. For the rest of my characters, I'll probably end up like, I know I got a werewolf series coming out, and I'll probably put that one in the young adult, because of course, I can do that and enjoy that writing. But if I don't enjoy the writing, I won't put it in a particular genre. And I think that's one thing that like me and Katie had talked about, and also about the design and I guess presentations of the covers for books. You got to get that right, and a lot of writers don't usually understand that. I think it's because writers usually try to, the writer, of course, has to have a say in cover design. Of course, they're going to do that, but you're the writer. And this is my view on it. You're the writer. If you want to concentrate on writing, but find you a professional and a person who knows about the particular genre you're trying to get into. And it has to be a professional, because professionals should know, as graphic artists, what people are looking for in a book cover for that particular genre. A lot of people say you should make your book cover different. It's not necessarily true, because if you make it different, the people who are readers looking through that genre are going to look at that book and it looks different from all the other covers. That's like, maybe it's not part of that genre. So you have to find you an actual graphic artist that knows about that particular genre and can design a book that falls within those constraints, and doesn't scare off people thinking that, oh, well, this is not the book for me then, because unfortunately people do judge a book by the cover. It's just the ideas nowadays. It's a new view in the life of books.
That's true.
And book covers and synopsis is the other thing. A lot of because I think I had told Katie that I went ahead and did it. I set aside $3,000, and I decided to test all these different services, and I spent $3,000 trying to figure out all the different services that might work in marketing. Weirdly enough, the only ones that actually turned and gave good return was like things like BookFunnel, things like Amazon ads. Facebook, if you have the money, will have pretty good returns if you do it correctly. But everything else, from Kirkus reviews to all these editorial reviews, nothing returned back. I was paying $300-$400 for those. What do you call them? The ones that say they can market, you have to be careful on these ones to make sure that they don't break Amazon's rules. But you can have people try to help you market your book on Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot. All those services didn't return very much, because they're so blasted out there that they just get lost within the noise of other marketing material that people are putting out. And then the ones that worked too were the synopsis writers, like Brian Cohen and Brian Meeks. They have a pretty good return. And then I do my own book covers, but I'm sure that if I would have spent the money for, I know a couple of people out there, they're pretty famous in doing their book covers. The book covers would be the biggest things to do in return. And so I figured out that the level of marketing comes from book covers. Synopsis is your number one. Before you even start marketing, you have to get those correct. Of course, your story has to be correct and polished and whatnot. But as far as the actual outside of the story, book covers and synopsis is going to be your main top priorities. If you don't get those correct, you're not going to make any sales. And well, you probably will. You probably will from like people who are fans of yours. But if you don't get away from that inner circle of your closest friends and readers, and you want to have that circle spread out, you're never going to get higher than that unless you fix those. It's like I don't know, like trying to figure out what's wrong with somebody who's sick. You have to go in there and kind of figure out and do your A/B tests and whatnot. So went a little tangent there.
You mentioned Brian. He does classes, I think, twice a year on Facebook to help people figure out Amazon ads.
Cohen?
Yeah.
Brian Cohen? Yeah. He sends me his newsletter because I went ahead and paid the synopsis fee for him to have his team or himself write the synopsis. And I did that in order because I've read his books and I've read Brian Meeks as well. I actually wanted to try Brian Meek's style of writing synopsis, but I went with Brian Cohen because I couldn't get in touch with Brian Meeks anymore. So I did that, and I decided to use it as a way for a template because I was trying to figure out how to write my own synopsis, but I wasn't so sure because I didn't have anything to. Of course, I have something to base off the examples he uses for other people's books, but I didn't have anything to base it off. Like, what about my story? I wanted to base it off of that. So I used that story to see how close I got when I did my own synopsis following their rules and see. And I was off a little. I'll say I was. I mean, I was. It was better than I did my first synopsis, but I was still off by a few things. I was still off on trying to get the emotional triggers and trying to create that emotional trigger from the beginning to the end for the synopsis is the main thing you want to do for it, because that's what's going to hook the readers in there and be like, man, this is pretty cool. It got me excited, and this is just a synopsis. Well, heck, I want to read the whole story. So.
Can I ask you?
That's important. And Anita clarified, she said 3 to 4 times per year is when Brian Cohen does his Amazon ads class. So if you can get onto that, it is worth following just to get an idea of how to work with the system, because he provides so much information, including how the formula to writing hooks for your book, which is very, very helpful.
That's awesome. Well, and I'd like to know how the synopsis writing, how that works when you hire someone to do that. You know, does that person actually read your book and write the synopsis, or do you have to give them an outline and they kind of cobble something together? How does that work?
I don't know how Brian Meeks does it. I know Brian Cohen has a form that you fill out. They ask particular questions. They don't want to actually read the book according to that forum, because if they read the book, I guess maybe it creates certain biases. So what he wants is just kind of interestingly enough, kind of the synopsis of the story as well, but give the story synopsis, give the main characters, of course, the protagonist, antagonist. And then I forgot all the other questions as far as the theme, time period, I think. Major conflict, personality of your main character, and then, of course, the overall story. I think he wanted like a 3-act or 4-act structure. You break it down into 4-act structure in order to give them the idea of the entire story. So I guess that kind of like a treatment for the entire story. And from there, they'll decide to gather the main highlights of the story and put in or create a emotional synopsis going through the different rungs of what's going on. And the way I think Brian Meeks does it the same way. There's 4 levels or 4 sections that you do the synopsis. You got to have your heading, of course, to introduce what the story is going to be about. Then you have I guess the first paragraph, the introduction, to kind of quickly tell the story. Then in the middle is kind of like how the book is in real life. You have the middle where you kind of try to keep on going with the story, but hopefully put in your emotional triggers, and you have to try to create that tension as you're going down the story to keep people interested and hook them in. And then at the end, you're going to finish off with either a line or 2 of what it falls under, what genre and time period maybe. And let me see, I think they finish off with one line saying, buy it now or get it now, in order to do the, what do you call that? The call to action. Yeah. And so, yeah, it wasn't really a hard process. I think that mainly a lot of writers, when they're trying to get into it, just don't realize what the entire process, when they're new writers, brand new writers, they don't realize what they're getting into as far as the process. And you have to really ask yourself as a writer, what do you want to do? Is it something that you want to do as a hobby? Is it something that you want to do as a business to actually try to make a living off of? Or is it just something that you're going to try to do on your, spare time when you're off work, that you want to make just a little bit, maybe side money? once you just, I think that's the actual first step you have to ask yourself is what kind of writer do you want to be? And then you can go in the process of enjoying how you write and then focus on your goals. For me, I would love to be able to make a living and have a where one of my passive income streams to be writing. I love writing. Of course, my main focus in life has always been movies and acting. That's the reason I'm trying to get back to LA. But writing, it's like a demon inside you that just trying to break out and won't let you sleep until the stories are out. So that's my thing. So if that's going to happen, I do enjoy writing it, but I would love to make money off of it. So my focus with writing is to study everything I can in order to get to a point where I can make maybe, my goal would be anywhere from 3,000, 4,000 a month just to get me there. If I can just get there, I'll be happy. So, I mean, I know my goal for that. So that's what I'm trying to achieve.
Cool.
And that is a job in itself. Like a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into the production of a book, because the writing part of it is one element. Then you're producing it, the cover art, the marketing, the editing, everything that goes into getting that book out there and making it profitable. It's a full-time job. So it should be making you income.
Yeah. And that's what I said. Like I said, I mean, I've already spent 3,000 just to test out all the different services out there, and I made a list of which ones work. So, besides the book covers and the synopsis, your next thing in order to sell them, of course, is your reviews, because your reviews help to, they talk for you. Instead of you talking for your book, the reviews are going to talk for you. And hopefully you have some good reviews and they'll get the people to finally click that button. But yeah, that's why I'm so kind of adamant, just because as a graphic artist myself, I'm kind of adamant and telling everybody, you got to get your book cover. Your book cover, everything starts with that book cover. That's the first thing they're going to see, besides maybe a little synopsis, maybe a little line of your book. But for the most thing, that's the thing that gets people to stop and say, "Ooh, what is this?" Or gather the attention of their eyes, gets locked in there. It's like, "Ooh, okay, let me see what this book is."
Yeah,
okay, now let's read.
The adage is true. People do judge a book by its cover. And if a book cover turns somebody off, they are that much less likely to even give a chance to the synopsis or anything else.
Yeah, I was just in the library yesterday grabbing some new books, and so I'm looking at the new arrivals, which are, of course, they're all Big Five publisher, New York Times bestseller stuff, and that's what I look at. Like I've got one right here that I was reading. It's Preston and Child, The Scorpion's Tale. Ooh. But I looked at it and I was like, okay, I recognize the authors, so that's check one. I like the cover. I like the colors of it. I like the font on the title, and I thought it was a cool title. I was like, okay. And I didn't read the synopsis. That's all I needed to know. I mean, it can sometimes be that simple. Other times, if I don't know the author, I'll take a good hard look at the cover and then I'll read the synopsis. But yeah, that cover, it really is everything. Having a kick-ass cover.
It's one of the main things that has to capture. Weirdly enough, because I've been designing for over 20 years, and I've been doing photography, and it's weird what I see with people. I don't know how to explain it. I guess it has to do with something with psychology, but what I see with design and with photography is almost the same idea. Is when I'm doing photography, I've studied it so much, I know how to make the picture look good, and other photographers will know what kind of edits I did in order to make it pop, in order to get that depth in the picture, in order to make it look like 3D-ish almost, if some people look at it, right? But then you have a person who's barely started, charges $20 in order to beat your $150. And people are like, "Oh, wow, this picture is so awesome. I only paid $20 and stuff." And they have no fundamentals of photography or lighting behind it. And I'm looking at it and it's like, well, that I could have taken that with the, a phone camera, right? And which, of course, I can teach people how to take good pictures for phone cameras if I wanted to, but it's weird that it's mainly the fundamentals. It's actually about the fundamentals and how the picture looks. And I call them neo buyers. Neo buyers, like the ones who are willing to spend, like, actually, I know people that spend $3,000 on a portrait because that portrait has, you know, the photographer does the edits and they do it really good. It looks like an actual, you know, fine art, and they have a fantastic frame on it. So these people, neo buyers, are willing to pay because they know what kind of work it goes into it. They understand something in their back of the mind, maybe not consciously, but in the subconscious, understand that this book, or not book, but this picture is better than this picture over here, who, from a person who doesn't understand the fundamentals of lighting. Bring that down to just normal everyday buyers. Normal everyday buyers, you have to understand if they want them for just having a memory, which they can just take with their picture, you know, with their phone, and then who actually want a little bit more artistic flair behind it, which for weddings that we do, they usually more want an artistic flair behind it compared to just memories. And some of them are going to be candid and just memories. But in the back of their mind, when it comes to that artistic, I think that something exists that can define the difference between a good picture and a bad picture. And for book covers, I think it's the same thing. There's millions of readers out there, but you'll probably get, let's say, 100 or 200 readers to say, oh, this is the best book ever, even though the cover sucks. But the problem with that is you'll never going to have your circle of influence grow beyond those 100 or 200 people, because odds are, depending on how many people are looking at your book, you probably will have 100 or 200 people. But in order to gain exposure beyond that, you have to be as good as you can be. And I think a lot of new writers fall into that trap, saying, oh, well, it was good enough to get 100 to 200 writers. Now I just got to market more. You can market as much as you want, but that book, as long as it's not the best that it can be, and every part of it has not a master, but a professional graphic artist, a professional editor, a professional synopsis writer behind it, you might only reach that 200 or 300, maybe most 500 people. But if you truly want to make a living on it, you got to reach into, you know, thousands and hundreds of people. And, you know, with book covers, I'll see where somebody will design a book cover and it doesn't have that, me coming from a graphic design background, it doesn't have that professional look. Maybe the rule of threes, or the, you know, and maybe the texts are off. Maybe the texts look like something that, you know, every other person would use as a text, and they say, oh, that looks badass. Well, it might look badass to you and maybe 100 people, but does it look badass and professional to these other people who in the back of their mind know there's something wrong? Something in the back of their mind is itching and saying, well, this book doesn't look as professional as it could be compared to what I've seen, that my brain recognizes all these other genres and all these other books that I've seen printed out by professional publishers. And that's what we're fighting against. That's what we have to be competing against. You have to make that book cover as badass as you can be.
Well, and I think that not everybody has that radar, but, you know, if I, you know, my wife and I are both professional photographers, so, you know, I think there might be a little bit of a difference. You know, we've both gone to school, but, you know, if I'm looking through a bookstore at book covers, you know, my mind, and it's mean to say, well, if I see something that looks subpar, I'll just automatically think, okay, that's cheap. You know, that's cheap, and and I'll just gloss over it without giving it much of a second thought, which probably isn't fair at all, because they might be fantastic books, but that's what registered into my head as like, okay, yeah, it's a shit cover, it's probably a shit book. And I said, it's so mean to say that, because I know how damn expensive book covers are. We can't all afford that, but you know, and I think you're absolutely right. I think that, you know, the mind just you can tell when something is a better product. You know, when you see something and it just looks well put together, professional, everything is right, then you're like, okay, this is pretty solid. I could investigate it further.
Yeah, and I think it's because readers know, like, everybody makes money, and gig work, I mean, like my gig work, if I design book covers, of course I'm spending my time into it, but money is not really the object, right? When you think about reading a book, if you're going to spend $5 or $20, it's because you want to read that book. Money won't be the actual object of what new writers need to understand is that when you want to buy a book, you're actually setting aside time. Time is what is important to people's lives. If I'm going to spend so much time on a book and I want to make sure it's going to be pretty interesting, but the first thing I see is something in my brain triggers, well, the cover's not good enough, or the synopsis doesn't look interesting. Something is off about the book, and you're just glancing by, then you're not going to want to have put your value of time into that book, because that's time that you can never get back.
Yeah.
And if the book sucks, it's lost time.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that, of course, it could work in reverse, but maybe you write a story and it sucks and you don't know it sucks, but you have a badass cover and a badass synopsis. that could also work against you, but then your name would get out there.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I'm not going to name names because that would be terrible, but I've read 2 books, probably in the last 3 years. So it's not a big number, that the covers were phenomenal. I mean, just out of the park, great covers, and the books were just crap. They were just so freaking terrible, and I felt cheated. I was like, man, this thing had the most badass cover ever, and it's just this piece of crap, and I wasted a week of my life reading this. Come on,
stop reading 50 Shades of Grey, Jay.
Well, honestly, mass market appeal, those covers weren't terrible, but
I don't get those covers though. I really don't get the overly stylistic covers, like the Twilight covers too, where it's like metaphors with images, and it's like, what is this? No, I don't like those covers, but those books sell like crazy, and people use that to justify their bad covers. Yeah.
Well, and we were talking about William, we were talking about the Nevernight Chronicles, which I absolutely loved, and I picked up the book by recommendation from Stacy Falak, who's been on this show, fantastic fantasy author, and she was like, it's one of my favorites. I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I grabbed it from the library, and I looked at the cover. I did not like the cover because it had kind of a graphic novel or anime type of feel, which is not my scene at all. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to, and I ended up loving it. So. But like I said, it wasn't a trash cover. It just didn't feel like my cup of tea, but I powered through based on the recommendation of a friend, and I'm glad I did.
See, that was going based on your taste, but not necessarily on the cover.
Word of mouth is the best seller.
Yeah, word of mouth is the best seller as well. Twilight covers, I don't know, is that the one that just has like a certain one has like a feather with a blood stain on it, and everything else is black?
They're really like just metaphor covers with single images, and everyone goes gaga
I know
for
which one you're talking about. But you know what? The weird thing about that is that the design of it still actually falls under actual good design. Because I know you mentioned that a lot of other people try to justify it for their book covers, but weirdly enough, if their book covers are actually designed with, like, a lot of it has to do with font, right? If that font is correct and is placed correctly, and then the picture is like you have enough negative space and positive space, it triggers something in the mind. I mean, it's aesthetically
I get
pleasing.
the layout. I totally get the layout, but people will go, oh, well, it had a chess piece on it. I'm going to stick a chess piece on my cover.
Yeah.
Because it looks like those covers. No, it doesn't. You tried. You didn't quite get the same thing.
I'm not gonna. I mean, we can't lend any credit to the derivatives because they're derivatives, and that's what they do. They, but. Yeah,
and font choice too. I gotta, like, these are sticking points for me, because I actually, one of the places that I freelance is on Upwork, and I had somebody send me a request that they wanted me to do their book cover, and they sent me the images they want to use and the fonts that they want to use, and I told them this isn't gonna work. And they're like, well, no, this is what it needs to be, because this is, and it was like some Regency romance genre, and I went, okay, you're trying to go for accurate period look with everything being super fancy, but you're not going to be able to read that font. The image is not going to appeal to modern readers. I mean, I listed all of these things off, and they went, no, you just don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm telling you what the market is going to expect, and you want to use an oil painting of a lady sitting by herself on a muddy brown background, go ahead. But I'm not the cover artist for you. I'm sorry. This will not work if you're trying to go after this genre.
And that's exactly what I was saying is, like, if you're the writer, of course you're going to have a little you're going to have a little bit of say in the cover art, of course, yes. But to not have it where you want complete control. A lot of like there's like certain covers that maybe authors or want something picked out from a scene in the book, or they want to put in so many different ideas from the book into the cover. That really doesn't make sense. The whole reason for the cover is to grab the attention. Forget about what the scenes are in the book. That the story needs to tell itself when the people are reading it. Don't give it away in the synopsis, and don't give it away in the book cover. The book cover's only job is to pick out what genre that book is in, and maybe a little bit of an idea of maybe a character standing in the middle, maybe a dagger being stabbed into somebody. But it'll get a little bit of idea. But the main point is to grab attention, and synopsis as well. The main point is to invoke emotion, not tell the story. And I think with writers, they'll try to take more control, and they want to become attached to the cover, and they want to become attached to the synopsis. It's like, no, don't become attached to it. Of course, have your say and where you want to steer it to in a little bit, but you can't have so much say that you impede on the creator's idea of what they know for the rules of that genre. And I don't know. It's
hard to. It's really hard to accept when you're the writer, when you're the author, or when you're the musician, or when you're the whatever, and you've created this body of work, and now you're giving it over to someone else to do another part of the job that they know because that's their job. But it's really difficult to let go of that control. And I think that especially if you haven't done it before a couple times with your other books, but it's tough for people to accept. And I think that you're right, that you shouldn't give up all control. I think that you should always have a say in things, but remember that when you hire a professional, it is their job to know what they're talking about, and they're going to do their job. All you can do is give them what they ask for and help them along the way, but don't get in the way, because you're going to end up screwing it up.
Yeah, and just because you said
we did an episode 2 weeks ago, me and Jane, talking about covers, the covers that we love, but we also showed our original covers back from 10, 11 years ago when we started, and we wanted to make our own covers, or we wanted to go with, cheaper options, and you can see the difference. And the difference was also paid for out of our pockets. So it becomes a costly thing to fix later down the line.
Oh, sorry. And I was going to say, because the main job for an author once they're finished with their story is actually to find a professional. That's the main thing. That's where you want to do your research on. That's where you don't want to let go of your baby, right? You want to make sure that they know what they're talking about. They know about that specific genre. Editor, be it an editor or a graphic artist, you want to make sure that they know that particular genre, or they know what they're talking about. That's the main job of the author once they're done. And like I said, of course, have a little bit of say where they want to have that cover go to. Because I think a lot of authors say, well, I like this cover. I love this cover. Okay, well, you love it because maybe it falls within your taste of what a cover is, but your taste of the cover could be like a sucky taste. It could be like, that's like some weird childish font right there, but I love it, man. That's going to sell some books. Okay, maybe to like a 10-year-old when it's supposed to be a horror story. But
I did that. I fell in love with the cover redesign for an entire book series. We're talking 4 books that I recovered because I loved the covers. And within a year, I had to have them recovered because they did not sell. They did not hit the market the way it was supposed to be. They're beautiful covers.
Pretty Little Werewolf?
They were not right for the market.
Was it Pretty Little Werewolf?
No, it was, I still love those.
I do too.
No, it was the Immortalis cover redesign.
I got you.
The ones that look more like horror novels.
Yep.
They were
Well, see, like
gorgeous. They're very stylized. They're beautiful, but they did not target the right market.
See, like I know I had brought this one up when we had Katie on our show, but with this one, I actually redesigned 5 different times. The very first cover was just Raven staring straight ahead on the, at you, and with a red background. But this is not actually the final one, because what I do is design covers, then order them, wait for them to come in, redesign them, and then what I did, I put them out like the Kindle versions. I put out quickly enough to where I can try to see and do an A/B test, and I try to see which ones are getting more clicks on the what do you call it, the ads. This one actually got more clicks, and then all I did was turn the feathers into black feathers. So I luckily I know how to. I played with my own design, which I wouldn't suggest, even though I do it. You always want to have a different eye to look at it. But I went ahead and tried to play it as much as I could in order to what people were reacting to, the look of it. So I designed it like 5 different times. I came out with 2 main designs, and I did an A/B test. And finally, this one is the one that won for right now. But more than likely, I'll probably end up changing it maybe another 2 years down the line, just because I want to keep up with it as my main book that starts all the series off.
Well, and it's nice.
Uh-oh.
Wow, that was weird. We just lost Jay again.
Oh,
That's like
my
what happened to
goodness.
me earlier. My internet just popped off for no reason.
I figured I was going to be the one losing internet, but
I agree with you, though. The cover, it does tend to evolve, because your covers after a few years will look dated. And if you're still trying to compete in the current marketplace, it's always good to do a cover design, a redesign. And even big publishers do the same thing. Over time, you'll see a new edition come out with a different cover. And that just helps continue to target the market where the market's at the moment.
Exactly. You got to calibrate with the times. And I know a lot of people starting out, just getting into writing, don't have that kind of money, but it's something that you have to actually just work toward, get to that point. Because if you do want to make a living, like I said, you got to decide what you want to do as a writer. But if you do want to make a living on it, is something that I would suggest is working toward that, because it has to be like a business. You have your, you got to register your business, and you got to have your positive, negatives, your pros and cons, and your profit losses, all that, just like a regular business, if you want to make a living off of writing. So you have to get really serious with it.
And the client there, or the potential client that I had that wanted to argue about their vision, I told him, I'm not the artist for you then. Because I'm trying to give you what I know of the market. And I used a lot of examples to show it was currently selling in the marketplace. What, basically the visual expectation, just by doing keyword searches, you can tell exactly what comes up. I said, you're not targeting that market. You are going to stand out in the wrong way. And she had given me this big, long, just bitter email back about how she was right. And it's like, then please go find what's going to work for you. But I can't do that cover for you. I know it's not going to work. So I'm not the right person. We're just not going to have a partnership here on that.
Yeah. I've done that before too with design. I will totally, like, especially with websites, I will totally refer another person for websites if they're not agreeing with what I'm telling them, because that I've been doing for 20 years. So I have to know what I'm talking about. So
and no will involved. It's just, or no ill will involved. It's just, what you were going to learn. And I learned the hard way myself. I was stubborn initially. I thought I knew better. I learned the hard way. And so will you, dear author.
Yeah. And that's how I was with my editors too. At first, when I first started, I was like, oh, I don't know. This kind of means something. I need that sentence and paragraph to stay in. And they're like, no, it should go out because it doesn't have anything to do to further the story. So what's that have to do anything with the story? Exactly. Okay.
Oh, I just did that the other night. Another client of mine, I was editing their book, and their second to last chapter was a perfect ending place. And so the last chapter, I read through it. I'm like, why am I reading this? This is, 1,200 words of nothing that doesn't interest me. It doesn't tease me into the next story. It's just fluff and filler. Whereas that chapter before actually ended on what would have been the perfect note to continue on, not necessarily a cliffhanger, but it was a tease that there's going to be more. Cut this last chapter, get rid of it.
Yeah, and that's like one of the biggest ones too that a lot of authors don't like doing is cutting certain scenes out there.
Yep. They're so like, these are my babies. These are my words. I can't cut them. You might have to make the story better overall. Sometimes you have to be willing to make those sacrifices, and a lot of times it's a learning experience. It's going through the motions. It's trial and error. It's sometimes taking your lumps and coming back and going, "Yep, you were right. Let's fix it."
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the biggest learning curve, I guess, is when you're trying to do your writing and then you get into another learning curve, graphic for your book cover and then your synopsis. But as long as you're learning, that's the main point. As long as you're learning and not going back to the same ideas and moving forward, I think, you'll do okay. It's just, like I said, just figuring out what your main goal is with writing.
Absolutely. And that's how your podcast is running right now. You're providing a lot of this tips and tricks from authors who've been there, done that, right?
Yeah, we're trying to get it going and stuff. Like I said, we're still kind of playing around with the waters, and I think I added where I kind of did an outline last time for first person, third person, and omniscient POV, trying to explain the differences, and I just made a little graphic or a list of explaining how I thought about it. Because most of the time we're kind of talking heads, of course, like a normal podcast. But
that's it, yep.
Yeah, I want to make sure that at least we drive the idea through and people are getting the actual point across. So, but yeah, well, Janelle, I know, will be gone for the next month. So it depends on how I'm going to do it. See how I'm going to move forward for the next month on how to interview people and try to keep the videos going on Tuesday, because usually it's just the two of us talking about an idea.
All right. Well, we are actually running
tomorrow.
low
I have
on time.
Oh yeah. No, I was going to say tomorrow we have Ed Sauter and Kendra Sauter. So we're going to do one of.
What we'll do is we will put your link in the show notes below so that anybody watching on our YouTube channel can easily find you.
Yeah.
And that way we can kind of get some people over towards your show so they can, listen in on those tips and tricks and get you some subscribers too, right?
Yeah, that'd be excellent. We're up to 6 right now.
All right. So tomorrow, at what time is the show going?
4:00 Central Time.
All right. We will put that in the notes. And then, of course, before we go, we do have to send a shout out to our second sponsor, Mistress Rebekah Jonesy. You will be entertained. And if you are listening to her Facebook page on Wednesdays, she is doing live readings, and she is such a fabulous reader. I love listening in on her live reads, and she's got some amazing books. You will absolutely be entertained. So thank you, Rebekah, for being our sponsor and helping keep this show going. All right. I can't believe we ran over. That was such a quick hour.
I guess we got
obviously because there's lots to talk about, right? I mean,
yeah. And then we lost Jay.
Poor Jay. Hopefully he didn't have a complete crash, but we'll chat with him later. I will make sure your show notes with your link are down below as soon as we're done. It's going to be about 5 minutes to get those up. And thanks for hanging out with us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. And next time, hopefully Janelle will join me.
Definitely. We will get you two back on. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. That helps get the word out about our channel so we can get some more viewers and we can introduce more authors to you, which we will next week. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great week, guys. Thanks for watching.